Mnyandu, a multi-award winning journalist from the SABC, and he's here on his personal capacity. Bravels, welcome.
And Willis and Willis and Willis, also to everyone who's joining us, watching live on streaming live on Facebook, and talking amateur football. This is my first love here.
Welcome, Brian. It's been long overdue, and we're glad that you've made time to have this open conversation, just to chat about amateur football and looking at 2010 FIFA legacy. And of course, I mean, this year it was a big celebration, and one, kind of asked the question: are we at the stage that we should be, or we should have been? If you look at the World Cup and its funding that has been injected into amateur football.
Yeah, look, as you've said, I think when you look at the amount of money which was left by FIFA back then, I think it was supposed to be 500 million, of which 50 million of that had been used for the preparation of Bafana for the World Cup. And also part of that was also to build Safa House as well. So if you look at the 450 million, which was left, I know that there are a lot of people who also studied through it, but most importantly, it was also supposed to help in building the infrastructure for football around the country in all the 52 regions of Safa. But I think there are things for me, as much as, yes, I know where part of the money was used to try and help improve football. But I think if there's one area that really concerns me, which I feel that we didn't use a part of this in the way that we wanted to do, because each province, for all the 9 provinces, were earmarked to have its own academy. At that time, they were modeling it around the old School of Excellence. And now you'll understand why we have this obsession with the School of Excellence, because from way back in the mid-90s, from 1994, I think when it was formed, it had been the only football academy that we knew of, until all these other private academies started to mushroom, until most of the professional clubs started to have their own academies as well. So this is something that we welcome, because if, for instance, you go to the Eastern Cape and you say in East London, which is central in the province, for those coming from the Mthatha side, for those coming from the PE side, and also from the northern side of the province as well, from Alwa North Nabo, Kutijanwe, Pa Emonti, Kubekoi Academy. You also have the same for KZN as well. You see how big KZN is. And for me, I consider KZN to be the talent hub for football in the country, if you look at the players they've produced that side. So, and especially some of these provinces which are considered to be rural, if you look at the talent that we've always had, even in national teams and junior national teams from Limpopo as well. So having these 9 provincial academies, which would be feeding talent from regions from those particular provinces, for me, this is something that makes in terms of making sure that we've got a systematic way of making sure that we identify talent, firstly, but most importantly, make sure that in terms of getting connection.
Yeah, I seem to be losing you there, Velile. Okay, looks like.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe I might have to change location, which will not be a good spot for you. But I think it will at least help in terms of connection. But let's continue to try.
Yeah, I think we're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I look at the 9 provinces, which is the 52 regions, and if one looks at it, it covers the entire country, and football, it does have the biggest footprint. And one would have expected by now that, I mean, it's 10 years now that we've hosted the World Cup. One would have expected now that we do have those academies and they do exist. The only thing that one has heard is conversations to say we need to have academies. And you've made an example about the School of Excellence, where it has been identified as one of the areas. The same applies here in the Western Cape or in Cape Town. They look at the sports school as one of the existing, call it, infrastructure. And none of this has taken off. And one wonders if it will really take off.
Yeah, I think for me it's unacceptable that as a country which hosted the World Cup, a decade later we are sitting here discussing something like this. So the execution should have been one of the priorities. So for us to find ourselves where we are right now, more especially when it comes to the streamlining of talent from all these areas, it's a sad case. I was really proud to see earlier this week, if not last week, and yes, 2 days ago, we spoke to the coach of Baroka FC, Dylan Kerr, about the new boy coming from Pondo Chiefs. What they call him Besuma, I think he's a big striker. Because if you know where Pondo Chiefs comes from, and you know that Pondo Chiefs, to honor a fixture in PE, it's like traveling to Joburg. It's like traveling to Joburg, or almost like traveling to Joburg in the same, because a return trip for them just to honor that fixture is more than 1,200 kilometers. That is a return trip. And now this is the reality of football. And I'm talking about Eastern Cape because 11 years of my life reporting on the game, I studied there in the province. So going from Matatia to honor a fixture in PE, just one fixture, that's 1,200 kilometers. So these are the realities. So when you see a club, this is a club all the way from Limpopo. They travel down to the Eastern Cape to identify that talent. You ask yourself, what has happened to the club there in the province? With this talent, but also maybe also to the structures as well. What has happened to the structures in terms of getting this talent there? So I know that different clubs use different models of scouting talent and all those things. But when you see a young player coming from the amateur structures and getting that type of recognition, but look, it's the issue of our game, I think, especially in terms of bettering the lives of amateur football players, and not just identifying them, but quickly making sure that you make things easier. You make the process smoother of getting to the top. I think we need to work in that space because we're losing a lot of talent, and we're losing that talent because we're not structured in the right way. Because this is where I was really welcoming this issue of technical officers in all the regions or in all the provinces, because at least they will make things easier. But I'm not sure how effective was their work, especially in linking up with the national office and making sure that whatever that they do out of that talent, because Pels, look, let's talk about it. Yeah. I've covered some interprovincial tournaments, and this thing of hearing that, and when you go to interprovincial tournaments, you will hear different provinces saying this, that they only started camping a week before they come to the interprovincial tournament. I mean, what is that? What is that? You know, what are you trying to achieve? You know, and players here, who only started playing football 3-4 weeks before you go to the interprovincial champs. You know, we are talking about players who are playing league football throughout the season. You know, so where and when do you have time as coaches who have been appointed by the regional bodies or even the LFAs or even the provincial structure to train these players? You know, let the boys or the girls get to understand each other. You know, I mean, that is the process of development. Yeah. So that by the time they go and compete in the national playoffs or the national champs, they are a unit if they are representing a region, or if maybe they are going to a provincial championship, they are a unit if they are representing a region or a province to the national champs.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is a quite a complex conversation because you chat about the provincial technical officers. I mean, I had a conversation about a month ago with a provincial technical officer here in the Western Cape, and the task was simple: have technical officers within LFAs, have technical officers within regions, and out of the 6 here in the Western Cape, he managed to get to 3 regions, and the other 3 is non-compliant. And you get the sense that there's also some resistance on how these technical officers, provincial technical officers, have been appointed, because some people are not in favor of certain people, and they were looking for their own people to be part of that. And therefore, then you find this resistance where a provincial technical officer brings a plan to say, this is what we're going to do. And there's other issues as well, the direct reporting to Neil. And because some people believe that the provincial technical officer must report to them as the executive. So you find that the FA has too much political structures, and which then prevents the development of football.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And now bear in mind that we're talking about a province that I consider to be well-resourced in the Western Cape. I mean, growing up and starting this reporting thing way back, more than 20 years ago, I mean, when it comes to national championships, you always knew that there was going to be Western Province or Western Cape. There was going to be South Gauteng, which is the Joburg area. There was going to be South KZN, you know. But one of those days, because I was asking myself at some stage, why is Western Cape not up there, you know? But I think you are slowly trying to reclaim your place as the province. But I think this is also another challenge that we still have, and you find that this is not just a challenge in the sporting sector of trying to do it in Dogobuchomi or trying to get your own people, and we don't get the best people, you know. We don't get the best people. In fact, my friend Lax always says, the best amongst us must lead us, you know. And you know, and same goes here. It's the same story, you know. It's the same story. How many times you've seen some of the top coaching talent, and abanye we grow up with them and we stay with them in our areas, but about money chance, you know. I will tell you about one of the situations very close to my heart, and it's a sad case for me because this is happening also in my region, in the Eastern Cape, Buffalo City. You look, growing up, I think I remember, I don't know now what the LFA is called, but growing up, we knew it as North End Football Association. It's NEFA. And I can guarantee you, you can go to East London now, go to the Buffalo City region now. There is no LFA as organized as that LFA. If you're asking from under 6 to under 19, That's one LFA where you'll get the best talent, and they are very organized. They've got everything, but they've been having some running battles with the region for the past 3 to 4 years, I think. And I don't even think they are fully recognized as we speak. So now you can imagine in terms of the talent in that area, you know, and this is an LFA which has produced the likes of Brendan Augustine, the likes of Marvin Klassen, you know, and these guys, they come from that area. And you also look at, you know, because we're also talking about this politics that we're talking about now, you look at South KZN, for instance, from the language from back then, which is Safa Etegwe now.
Yeah.
I think now for more than 6 to 7 years, they've been having these problems where they have 2 structures, you know. And hell, this is a region with 3 PSL clubs.
Sure.
You know, this is a region with 3 PSL clubs. This is a region with Glad Africa Championship clubs, and I don't even know how many academies are in that space. So we need to put politics aside, get the best people, because the best people are there. They've been trained by the association themselves, you know, and try and make sure that we work around producing top quality players at amateur level, and equally administrators as well, and also people in the technical team space.
Yeah. Speaking about getting the best people, we've seen that, I mean, this starts at an LFA. Obviously, it's fed by the national structures, where you find that you get a president at a local football association. I mean, I've had a lot of debates about this. I'm asking myself, how do you get a president at a local football association where you are expecting implementation to take place? Shouldn't you be having an administrator who's full-time employed and his solely responsibility is the implementation? Because there are no talking happening there. There, it's time to do and to put the plan into place and implement.
Yeah, you know, it's gonna go back to another point. I started reporting on football matters when we still had 25 regions, you know. And as much as I understood the rationale going to the 52 regions, because at that time we were also trying to conform to the expectations, the route that Statscock was taking, you know. But I think I had a challenge with how things have progressed.
Seem to be losing you there again, Velile.
Sport. Just give me 2. Okay, less than a minute. Less than a minute.
You're back. You seem like you're back again. Okay, Velile is trying to reconnect there. Let's just give him a few minutes just to find a good spot for the connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're back, Velile. We're back.
I'm sure for a moment you were surprised that you were seeing Chad Clayton's face. You know this. Safja is working.
I see Subject is working overdrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, now we can pick it up value where we said that, you know, we're looking at full-time people to be at local football association.
Okay, yeah, so as I was saying, so I came into the space when even Safa border, we had Safa border. In fact, in the Eastern Cape, we had 3 regions. We had Safa EP, Safa border, we had the then Safa Transkei. You know, so I understood the rationale behind trying to align the structures because SASCOC, they wanted all the sporting federations to organize themselves according to the demarcations of government, where you would have a district municipality or a metro, and then you will have a municipality, and then yeah, and you'll have a municipality, and then you will have the region. For instance, say Safama Amatole is the same as the Amatole district in the Eastern Cape. If you look at Safa eThekwini, it's Durban, and then it's also the different areas. So this is the situation that we had back then. And I also understand that you are also thinking that if a district or a metro is allocating resources, sporting resources, it would also mean that Safa Tshwane, for instance, would be getting support from the Tshwane metro. You know, Safa Johannesburg would also be getting support from the city of Johannesburg. And even for LFAs, if we are talking about Ingqushwa, will be also be getting the LFA in Ingqushwa will be getting. But things have not worked like that. You ask yourself how many of our LFAs and how many of our regions are getting support from local municipalities and also the district municipalities or the metros. You know, you'll find that, yes, maybe there's one metro there and then there's one municipality there which is following that, but not in all of them, you know. So for me, I think those in power, those who are running football, and people who are running football, it's not just people who are sitting here in Nazareth. You know, people who are running football are down there in the LFAs and also in the regions. This is a discussion which at some stage they must revisit. If these structures, these 52 regions, and also the 341 LFAs, have they really helped to improve how we run our game? You know, because at some stage, I think one of the things that is making football to lag behind is the issue of resources, especially in areas which don't have the infrastructure, like some of your provinces. You know the provinces. I don't want to mention the provinces.
Yeah, no, we know the provinces.
It will be a big issue, you know. So I think this is a discussion that at some stage we seriously need to revisit. I'm saying this because there are a number of federations: rugby, cricket, netball. I can mention most of them, which are still operating based on the old structures. Okay. You know, and financially, I think some of them are doing well because they found a way of making sure that the system is working. Yeah. You know, but look, we can go on forever because I also feel that 52 regions.
I always look at structurally, and this is the conversation that happens, is that people always refer to you as saying the structure is there, the processes are there to follow. But when you zoom in within the structure, it's too complex, it's too political. Now, if we talk about the 52 regions and we zoom in into those regions and look at each region, we look at the LFAs, and we look at, are people even able to source funding? Do they know what the funding model is to attract sponsorships? And one of the issues that we're talking about now, Veli, if you look at the current situation that we find ourselves in, and we're going to talk about shortly about the leagues of the FA. These leagues are not attractive. They're not pulling interest from, call it, local businesses. And they're not available on the digital platforms. And everything is so easier now at the click of a button so that you can attract, and this is based on your image as well as the FA. Is your image attracting sponsorships? Is your image attracting investors? Is there a good word that is out there that invites investors? And also to look at, how do you train your people within to be able to run this machine and start pulling all these resources together? Because in my view, we do have the money, but we don't know what to do with the money.
Yeah, look, now you are really coming to the real issues which are happening down there at amateur level. I was looking at just two years ago, and also through some of my colleagues, my colleague Likabo in Polokwane, she was covering what was happening that side. And I was really encouraged to see ABC Motsepe League teams from that part of the land having their own cup competition sponsored by VW, and this was in the middle of the season. And, and I was like, what? This is what we need.
Yeah.
This is what we need. We've had the model that we're using now, the provincial model. I remember, I think it was launched around 1997 when Vodacom came in to sponsor the Vodacom second division. And it's a model which has been there for a very long time. And to be honest, I really don't know how they can modify it. But there are experts in the game who can find ways of bring a refreshing element to how the national second division is run, the ABC Motsepe now. And look, I think it's going to be very difficult to move it from being a provincial one. To some of us, we've covered that division, and at some stage that division to us was like professional football, And I mean, you must go to the national playoffs, and I was hearing stories that the national playoffs, by the way, are coming here in Gauteng and next month possibly. Yeah. Yeah. So that division, to see in Limpopo, for them to be having a cup competition in the middle of the season, it was something unheard of in that division. And then you ask yourself, if can't other provinces try and do something similar? And also, they did it, I think it was a season, and then the following season, and then things went quiet. Then I was wondering why, because those guys would have gotten a lot of mileage from that, not only provincial, but also from national media as well, which brings me now to another point, because you were talking about the element of professionalism and why local footballing structures, maybe LFAs, regions would struggle to attract sponsors and not just rely on the SAFA grant. If other sporting codes can access this funding, what is stopping the provincial, in fact, the regions and also the LFAs from following suit? Are we maybe better equipped at that level to have these things? Because I feel that it's not enough, especially when you've got a provincial government, you've got a regional government, your district, municipalities and metros, and you've got your local government, the municipalities. And on top of that, there's the private sector, So we can't just be relying on the grant, but do we have the right people running the game? Do we have the right people running the game in all the structures that we've spoken about, including provincially, to steer the ship towards what we're talking about now? And I don't know, maybe it's something that just coming from me. I've been working very close for the past decade, if not more, with University Sport South Africa. And Pels, University Sport, what comes to your mind first? First thing that comes to your mind with University Sport, what comes to your mind?
I think it's in the media. They're visible.
Yeah, they're visible, and also they are producing administrators.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, how many people out there who've done their sport management, who've done your sports science, who've got nothing to do?
Oh,
aren't these the people who are supposed to help change the status quo, to help bring solutions, these solutions that we're talking about now? So I feel that there are a lot of sports management graduates for me who are out there who have been neglected and who can play a big role in trying and in helping also to improve sports administration in the country, and not just football. And make no mistake, some of these things that we're talking about, we know that happen in also other sporting codes, not just football. Yeah. But look, football is the biggest sporting code in the country. So our focus is there. So I feel that SAFA, in their quest to say they want to have a world-class administration, the world-class administration is not going to start at the national office. It's not going to start there. The world-class administration is going to start from the LFAs, yes. Is filtered through to the regions, and then to the provincial structures. And that's where the FA is going to identify the best administrators from those structures to bring to the national office. So I just feel that you are bringing in a very good point. I know a lot of friends, and I know I've met a lot of friends in football who are good administrators. But I just feel that we're not really prioritizing making sure that we've got the best. I'm going back to Lax's point. The best amongst us must lead us. And down there in the structures, that is not happening.
Yeah, Velile, I think you're quite a busy man yourself. I would love to focus on your journey in sport. You've specialized now in football, but I would love to look back at your journey in sport, and we look also at the opportunities that do exist for, call it, the graduates of sports management, and how they can enter into the market. Because I've experienced this myself, is that one of the best things that you can do and make yourself available, you just have to volunteer yourself. You just have to put yourself out there. But for some people, it's quite a difficult thing. The opportunities are there, and the federations are not tapping into that. We're focusing on football now. For you to be a football administrator, what type of training do you go through? Does it exist? Or is it for some? Is there a criteria that one looks at? And the same applies to being in that position of a presidency or in the executive. Do you have a performance agreement with your executive? And that's one of the conversations I've been holding with the SAFA Cape Town. I say, you've got people in the executive, and this is applicable to all the regions and even to football clubs. But does anyone know what their responsibility is? Or is it to walk around to say, I'm the president of this, I'm the president of that? And when do we look back and say, this is where we're looking at you now? You've been in this position for 4 years. If we have to rate you, where are you? Have you carried out your responsibilities, your duties? So at the end of the day, you get into a situation where we go back again to the elections. If you've got more votes, you are in. If you don't have votes, even though you're the best candidate, you out. So freedom, yes, in terms of elections, and and the damage that it does when the work now must be carried, because there were divisions during the campaign. So there's a lot of work that then must be carried out after that, and some of it you cannot recover from it.
This is a very difficult one, but I would like us to separate these two.
Yes.
Hold on to my second thought that I'm gonna come with later, and remind me about it, because I want to address it separately,
Yes.
especially this one which involves the elections and how people also move up from the structures. And sometimes you wonder if there's a saying is close, but you wonder if abantu, if suffer one of the last elections, 2018, you wonder if basa representa bona okanye barepresenta ibhatshi zabo, but we'll come back to that one. It's an interesting point that you made earlier, because just yesterday I was with a prominent football player, still active. I've got a lot of respect for him, and we had this discussion about what he would like to do post his footballing career, because he doesn't strike me as one of those who wants to join the coaching queue, And I was trying to advise him, because I said, you know what, I've already seen that you are close to one LFA or one region, and I would like to encourage you, talk to the people who are there, because they've warmed up to you, and you've also been busy with activities with them, with some activities with them as well. Try to get into the structure, learn the ropes, and within no time, you are going to be there, so that we don't have this situation of come the election time, we always say, no, so-and-so must be made the president, or so-and-so should be in the NSC, but you ask yourself, what does he know? And this is a discussion which is not about any individual, because I also had the conversation earlier this year with one football player as well, a former footballer, and who was saying something similar to me, to say, sometimes it's not fair to say we must help an ex-professional player to get into that level, but you find that we've done nothing, in between the congresses, because an elective congress is 4 years, right? And then comes the next elective congress. So when I say, when appeals, because you're an ex-professional player, you must be put in, what have you been doing? What have you been doing in that 4 years to build yourself, because we've seen these things happening in other countries here on the continent. And these guys, they have learned the ropes. And I'm encouraged to see, I've seen here in Gauteng, there are some ex-professional players who are getting into the LFAs, who are getting into the regions. But the next step now, that must happen. They must get in there. They must get in there. I feel that, and I sometimes I don't know if it can be true, because and you don't know, you don't even know sometimes if they really mean some of these things. But I've heard that the late Shippa Masinga was very close to being co-opted to the SAFA NSC, and he had been playing a big role in trying to unite the legends, but after that, and that's why, I mean, the legends, for instance, the South African Masters and Legends Football Station, you don't see how active they are until at least a year before the elections.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you will see individuals, but in terms of their activities, in terms of their vibrancy, you know, and I'm not surprised that now there are other guys who are younger and they feel that they want to go a different direction. Yeah. You understand? So this is where for me I feel that because I wanted to address this issue because yes, ideally, and if you look around, especially in our region, here in Southern Africa, we've got young presidents, you know, we've got young executive members, you know, and also I don't want to refer to what is happening to Didier Drogba now, you know. If you look I remember, I think it was in Croatia when they played the World Cup final. Their president was Davos Suker, you know, and Davos Suker, 1998, we go to our first World Cup. Davos Suker was playing there.
That man was on fire.
Yeah, with Zivmarin Boban for Croatia, you know. But you don't just get to that level, you know. You work in the structures. Because for the LFAs, for the regions to buy into the face of Velile, not just because Velile is a former Bushbucks player, you know, but because of Velile, we've seen him. He's been part of us, and he's been helping with tournaments in our space, you know, and then we feel that this is the man who must lead us, or he should be in our structures. And I don't think this is asking for too much. You know, just your time, the dedication that should be there, and you get the support. Because if you are a son of the soil, you are coming from that area. Why must they deny you the opportunity?
Absolutely, I think, you know, a footballer got many lives. You know, you are known at amateur ranks, and then you slowly progress and you get to a professional setup, and people will know you for that. But when you retire, you know, people always associate you with that, and that's one of the conversations I've had with Thabo Mngomeni as well. And this man disappeared for some time in the scene, but he came back.
And also, Pels, you don't start because some of the guys and most of the guys, they are active, you know, they also stage tournaments, you know. So that is the time when they stage the tournaments. That is the time when they are also supposed to be getting busy in terms of starting to learn the ropes, you know, learn how the structures in the game work, so that by the time you retire, because also football now, there are also courses, you know, by the time you retire. In fact, even not just about retiring, the South African Football Players Union is offering bursaries. You know, if you know your path, okay, no, now I'm not really into this coaching business. I don't want to coach. So what do you want to do? You want to be an administrator in the game, possibly, and continue to do your things? Okay, so it's fine. So let's work to prepare you, because also there's off-season, you know, and footballers have got a lot of time, and you train at 8 a.m., by 10 o'clock, you're going back home, you know. So I know some guys who are studying, but I know guys who've got an opportunity to study, but they're not studying. So you can be prepared towards that, so that by the time you even retire, you are well familiar with the structures, and you can just move seamlessly straight. If it means you get co-opted to serve in the LFA or even in the region, which will prepare you now to go to the province or to go to the NEC, it can be easy. But it goes back to that point. I'm a Grotman, lama timer, afuna ukugugela nokuwa kwezazihlalo bakuzo pha phezulu ke ngoku. This must come to an end. This is where now it becomes important And I will talk about a space. I'm not talking about a business, you know. I'm talking about a national structure now. That is why it's important now. We must institutionalize this thing of a succession debate. The succession debate in our football must not just start at the top. It must start down there, you know, because there are people who want to serve. If undo why an EC member from 20 years ago, akafuna usuka, you know. Look, if we see uba umuntu wenza kahle, okay, granted. But if, because Pearls, how can we talk about Pearls is serving in a national structure, but you go to his region or you go to his LFA, you know, and you're like, there is no football. There's no amateur football playing.
But he's serving at the first side.
You know, so I mean, we must reward the best out of the lot, you know. And to serve in the NEC, I'm not saying it's to be rewarded. It's also about having the best brains in football for me, because if it means Safa Ehlanzeni, for instance, in Mpumalanga, is producing the best talent. They've got the vibrant leagues. You know, it makes sense that a president from Safa Ehlanzeni, from Safa Bembe, should be in the national structure. You know, but why reward mediocrity? You know, why reward people whose regions have been inactive at amateur level? Let's say there is no under 15s, there is no under 13s. And Ababantu, they've been in the national structure for over a decade. No.
Now, this is one of the areas that I say, you know, where is this performance agreement? How do we review the individuals that do occupy quite so critical positions? And when they come from these national meetings or setup, they go back to their regions. There's no reporting that takes place. So who's reporting to who? So we're sitting with this monster that, you know, we're trying to break down, but the people that are there, you know, it's more like a system that has been designed to benefit certain people. Because one of the areas I look at is, if you serve in a national structure, why must you be compensated? If you're serving in a national structure, yes, people can pay for you to be there and represent. But if we look at the amount of money that's spent on the national executive, which in my view is bloated, by the way, and you look at the amount of monies that is being injected into development, to the actual football.
Yeah, no, look, you've just mentioned another important point. And I remember when current SAFA president came in, Dr. Jordan, and one of the things just before he came in was around the reduction of the SAFA National Executive Committee, because I think there were 36, if not 34, yes, somewhere there, and they were supposed to whittle it down to the numbers of the FIFA Executive Committee at the time, which was 18. And I think for the past few years, they've been refusing to do that. And the reasoning in the latest, in one of the congresses, the reason was that, no, why must they change it? And I think this was just on the eve of an elective Congress, where they went to this extraordinary Congress and they said, no, they can't, because FIFA Council under Infantino, they've increased it again. And for me, it's not really about Infantino. You see, maybe people will not understand why we are talking about this. We're not really targeting individuals. Think about it. Think about it. When SAFA has got an executive committee meeting, and I think they're supposed to have one every quarter, right? And most of the time they have more than 4, and depending on also on urgent matters that they have to deal with at the time. You have to fly in all those people. You have to accommodate them. And you've just raised another matter now of honorariums, So if you had to minus all those guys who were supposed to be cut out, and you're left with 18, how much would the FA would be saving? And how that money also would be helping to run the LFAs and the regions. So for me, I think it was not a good idea to change the decision which had been made previously of that reduction of reducing the numbers of the NSC from 36 to 18. So I just feel that that was not a good idea, and I hope that the powers that be, those who are running football, and people who are running football, I said to you, are the people who are going to the Congress. People who are running football are not just the 36 people who are talking about who serve in that national structure. Are people who take decisions and vote during the Congress. So it's the regions.
The regions got power. They've got power.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel that
it depends with the numbers, Bill. Well, let's quickly touch on the scouts issue, and we know they are interprovincial, they are regional, they are schools league. There's everything that's happening, and one looks at a coach, and they also see a scout. So you would have expected by now that at least we do have scouts, accredited scouts, people that are well known, people that they know exactly what they're looking for. And in a situation where we're not going to sit with this player should be in, this player should have been out. Some players just get in by the back door because of so and so and so and so. At what point are we getting to accredited scouts, and what seems to be the challenge for the FA?
Give me 5 seconds.
Okay, Velile is asking for 5 seconds. I hope he's going to bring us the answer to this question.
I have not. No, I'm not sure if you can read this book. It's called The Football Scouting Bible.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
And it's a book that's been produced by a friend.
Yeah.
This is Walter Steenbock.
Yeah.
And I didn't discuss this with him, so I could be in trouble for doing this. But it's coming out soon. You know what I like about this book? It's not how can I put this? It's not when we'll see some of these books, written in Europe, and how this one is purely South African, and here he talks about the scouting work he's been doing at Kaizer Chiefs. He's been doing at Mamelodi Sundowns, which brought them success, and he refers to his work where he was scouting players throughout all the corners of this country, how our games, in fact, even how our footballing programs are also aligned, and also how things could be improved. So the experience that is got here, for me, when I look at this book, I look at the solutions of South African football.
Yeah.
Because it deals exactly with the problems that we have in the country, but now it gives you solutions. Yeah. Especially on the scouting side. Let's go back to the point of the point of a team, you are starting the season. You know you're an under-13 coach or you're an under-15 coach, and you've got your technical team, and you are coaching the provincial team, right? You're coaching Western Cape.
Yeah.
But you know in the Western Cape, you've got 6 regions, and it.
Yeah.
And now, how do you build your scouting? And because you know that, okay, you've got 6 regions, and this is the talent that you would need if you are dealing with under-13s and under-15s. How do you build your scouting network? On top of the technical officer which you're talking about. So if that operation is not an operation that is starting 3 or 4 weeks before you go to the national champs, it's an operation that started at the beginning of the season. It means that you are going to go to the national champs with a well-oiled team, and they know each other, and even maybe 3 or 4 months before at the national champs, you are no longer even looking at new players. You are just looking at exceptional talent that can fit into the team, because because you are guided by the scouting model.
Yeah.
As an LFA, as a region, and as a province. Because one of the things the aspiring coaches must know is that coaching is not just only to sit on the bench. There are many different areas. Someone like Walter Steinbock, he was in the same class with Pitso Mosimane, he was in the same class with Dr. Kumalo, he was in the same class with Steve Khombela, he was in the same class with Thabo Sinong. You can mention all these guys, but now he's a scout.
Yeah.
You understand? So at some stage, we must make scouting as SAFA, the people who are running the game in the country, to be fashionable.
Yeah.
As much as, because a scout is a coach, by the way, because you must know talent when we have to go and identify talent and how that talent is going to fit. So I feel that for us to improve scouting, it also calls on the LFA to make it fashionable, to say, yes, we're producing coaches, but not all the coaches that we're producing are going to sit on the bench.
Yeah.
Yes, at some stage, in terms of coming up in the industry, they must learn how to coach, and especially on getting their badges. Mm-hmm. But how do we make sure that we make this area of scouting even stronger, Mm-hmm. So, I've been interacting with a lot of scouts in recent years, and it's a fascinating space. How some guys are taking that space seriously, and you see some clubs. I mean, you look at SuperSport United, someone like Godfrey Musowetsa. Godfrey Musowetsa will tell you how he discovered players like Ronwen Williams, how he discovered players like Kemit Erasmus, players like Tandani Jumaelo, players like Camilo Mukocho, and this is something that is continued. How he beat Sundowns to get Tebogo Mokoena and even Bule, for that matter. And once he gets them, how to working together with Kwanele Kopo, they've managed with the little resources that SuperSport had in that space, how they've managed sometimes to be even ahead of Sundowns, But also in this book, Walter also tells you about the hotspots of football talent. If you are trying to find a holding midfielder who plays in this way, where to get him, in South Africa.
Yeah.
And if you go to a place like PE, how the talent in PE differs to the talent in Western Cape, or even in Malamulele, for instance, or if you go to Vryheid, what type of a player you're going to get in Vryheid, but also on how to build your network, around the country. So
Sure.
I feel that at some stage, until we make scouting to be this exciting, because scouting is talent identification, and for me, talent identification, this is an area which we are lacking, because we cannot be having this conversation again of Baroka coming all the way down there to go and get a player professional team. You understand?
Yeah.
How did that professional team there in that province miss that player? And that player is playing in the highest division in the province. You understand? So it means that as a professional club in that province, you must have a network. And the best talent coming out of this province,
Yeah. Now let's deal with this topic is quite exciting, and it's quite an extensive one. It needs it really needs a lot of time. And we keep on saying the FA is the custodian of the sport. I mean, you've seen it yourself with the current situation, with the resumption of the league and everything else. At what point is it mandatory for the FA to have that link? Because there's a big connection between the professional and the amateur. I mean, if you look at the selling of the status, it's the same thing that happens below. So everything else happens below. It's the same thing that happens at the top. Now, at what point do we get to say we've got the scouting system? And if we take Walter as, as the person to lead that, then he be the person. Because even at these workshops, or let's call it the coaching and the seminars, he's the type of person then that should always be there, or or have his own team that runs with that, and that it be pulled and be placed into the space of to become fashionable and to become known that if you are a football club, or if you are a region, or if you are an LFA, you have to have a scout. You must have a scout. If you haven't got it, you don't exist.
Walter, the conversation was not really going to be about him, but you will
have to pay.
Yeah, because we didn't come here to discuss him, but the conversation is in that space now. I call him Baresi.
Yeah.
He's a product of EWC, Bush.
Yeah.
And he's currently studying a Masters of Sports Directorship with the University of Manchester.
Yeah.
And there, and then this is where they produce sporting directors, technical directors, and there he's with top scouts, and also top footballing people from Liverpool, from Manchester City, from Arsenal, and other clubs, even in Europe, and so one of the things I know that at some stage, through Katsita, I think it was just after he left Sundowns, or around that period, and together with the Southern Football Coaches Association, they were going around the country and hosting seminars, scouting seminars. But I think I remember they went to Bochum in Limpopo, and they had another session in Kimberley as well, and they had 2 sessions here in Gauteng. I know that they were supposed to go to the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, KZN, Free State, and Mpumalanga. So I don't know how far did that go, and also Northwest as well. So maybe you must get in touch with him. He will fill you in on the details, because you see, these guys have got this knowledge. They're producing books now on scouting, and as I've said, the work that they are producing through also this Football Scouting Bible, this is not something else that is talking about scouting. For instance, Baresi helped Sundowns to get Nascimento.
Sure.
You know, and they didn't get Nascimento in Brazil.
Yeah.
Nascimento was coming from Portugal, and he went there in Portugal to watch the game, Nascimento. But he had started doing the work through following online, through Instat, So by the time he went to make a final decision and watch Nascimento, that's when he had final. Do you know that Baresi recommended to Sundowns in 2015, I think. Yeah, 2015. Yeah. Before we played COSAFA Under-20 Championships in 2016 against Zambia, he recommended to Sundowns that they must sign Petson Daka and Enoch Mwepu.
Sure.
They didn't sign them. Yeah. Where are they today?
Sure.
Where are they today? I think there's a team that is prepared to buy a Petson Daka for 30 million euros right now.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is scouting. This is scouting, and this is why we say the best amongst us must lead us.
Yeah.
And you find these best people we're talking about in different areas of the game.
Yeah.
But now we're talking scouting.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you about an institutional memory that is Godfrey Muswetsa at Supersport.
Yeah.
He had been scouting players from Okemit Erasmus to Ombule to Omukwela, and how much more, for instance, in this book, Walter talks about scouts from SAFA regions that me and you don't know about.
Sure.
And he mentioned some of their names, And these are the people that they've built the network. Because sometimes now I would be crediting Godfrey Muswetsa now, but you'd find that in Helbron, Upper Free State, or in that area, I think of Safa Fezile Dabi.
Yeah.
There are people that they are communicating with who know talent. So aren't these the people that we can work even as provinces, to make sure that they form a scouting network for the province, for the FA, For me, when a national under-17 team head coach, a national under-20, or even especially those two, when a national head coach comes, be it women, be it men, or say under-20, under-17, I don't know, it's not men, boys and girls. Yeah. So when a coach or when that technical team is looking for talent, they can't just be going to watch. We must know if we say, because a central midfielder is a central midfielder, if we say a Northwest, these are the top 10 center backs or top 10 left backs.
Sure.
Because we know, then they will produce this, no, this is based on this, this is based on this. Because there are people there in the game who are coaching and who are scouting. So why must we suffer? Why must we suffer? You understand? Why must we suffer? So I think at some stage we really need to discuss this. We must be organized.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the challenges that we're having now is that we are not organized. You know? And part of not being organized is not because we don't have the talent, we don't have the expertise, but because also there are issues of egos. Yeah. You know, and I mean, where are those common goals that we're working for and towards pre-1994? You know, where are those common goals? You know, where is that spirit of building to say, you know what, this is the change that we want, you know? So, because, no. Hey, you know, when I look at our situation, and this is why as journalists, even though it has taken us for a very long time to reach this point that we're in now, but this is why today I can proudly say this 5 months of lockdown, I don't want to say thanks to COVID-19, but well, this is the situation now. We've managed to set up our own structure. We've managed to resurrect the South African Football Journalists Association, you know, because we've seen how other countries, we see how other countries on the continent with less resources, no infrastructure at all as compared to us, but they're thriving. Just through organizing themselves and finding common goals to work towards. And, you know, the beautiful boys and girls I'm with there at SAFJA, with also some of our seniors who are in our structure as well, we are working towards this common goal of helping to improve football and journalism in the country, but also try and mentor those young ones who are coming up as well. And during this difficult time where most of our colleagues are losing their jobs, and see what we can do, you know, and most importantly, try and play a positive role towards the growth of the game in the country. Because we're also an important stakeholder in the game, you know, and it's important that we organize ourselves, but it's also important that we make sure that we don't just organize ourselves, we organize ourselves in the right way, you know, because we've seen these things. I mean, people ask me why setting up SAFJA was important, and I will tell you, Pearls, we were at the AFCON and I saw this group of about 75 guys from Senegal. Senegal was playing Algeria in the final, and they were entering Cairo International Stadium, and I was there. And I think there were some of my colleagues were there as well. Jabulo Ngidi was also there. I was like, do you see these guys? 75 of them.
Sure.
They are walking in, wearing golf shirts. At the back, they're written Senegalese Presse, you know? And they tell you that they've been raising funds because they know that every 2 years is going to be the AFCON. They've been raising funds during this 2-year period so that when they come to the AFCON, they all come together. They are organized. Sure. And this is not something that I was seeing for the first time. I had seen this in 2010, covering the World Cup in Bloemfontein. And I saw this group of colleagues from Cameroon, you know, they were looking for a team sheet. They were looking for team sheet pals. But even looking for the team sheet, they go together. And as a local, they were also asking me information about Bloom and where to get some of the things. That sort of unity. So I think we need to find. We need to find that. We need to find that. Yes, with some of the guys at Savja, we also compete. We work for different media houses. And people also, they're in this business of they want scoops and they want to get information first. But there at Savja, we know that we're not competing. We're building. That is our baby. Yes. And I was looking this week, they call it a swag.
Yeah.
It's Sports Writers Association of Ghana. They call it swag. Sports Writers Association.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know how many years they're celebrating this year? Celebrating it this week?
Yeah.
52 years.
Sure. Velile,
52 years.
This is quite an important point that you're raising, because we always walk past each other. People are busy. Yes. People are always busy. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. And when you look at this establishment by the journalism call it group, it's critical because you look at the stalls. I mean, if you're walking to town or wherever, you look at the stalls. Who do you find there? So, I mean, you will find that the foreign nationals, the Africans, they're working there, and they're selling whatever they're selling. But they do that as a unity. You look at the shops, the same applies. So I think it's good that there is that stage that has been reached in order to move as a unit. I mean, one of the areas that we looked at myself is that when we had AFCON, there was always local journalists, even if there is a game that's happening there with Bafana. But as the time went by, those things changed. No one is there anymore. People are covering from home. But I guess it also has to do with the guidance that you give to the young and upcoming people, which is one of the conversations I would like us to have. Because the news, everyone is quite quick to pick up the story and put up that headline. And I mean, I looked at yourself as one of the people who've been around, always relaxed. But when that story goes out, that story is solid and one can follow it, and understand what is actually happening and not seeking for breaking the story.
I think I'm also fortunate that long before I went to study journalism at the journalism school, I had been in the industry. This is my 23rd year now in the industry. Yeah. But I started at 15, so you can count. But also, in these 23 years, my first 11 years, I was strictly concentrating on covering amateur sport. So in terms of my upbringing in reporting, it's family entrenched, understanding how sport works in the country, because I'm a South African, so I'm talking in the context of covering sport in South Africa, in the Southern African region, and also on my continent as well. So I think one of the challenges, and it's something that since I moved here to Joburg 12 years ago, and most of the time you find that some of the youngsters, fresh from journalism school, first gig that they get is to cover sport at this level. And they don't have the foundation. And there's no proper guidance at some stage, and this is not just, this is talk about sports reporting, and sometimes you find that Yes, you will find different media houses with good resources where some are guided, but some are just working in a space where they can't find guidance, or even those who are supposed to guide them need to be guided themselves, you know, or the way that they're entering the space is the same way that those that they'll find who are their seniors also entered. So there is no proper foundation. You know what I mean? And also, look, different media houses target different types of content. You know, there are those. If you tell a story, he wants to break the story because, especially now with this pressure of social media, you want to have breaking news, wants to have a scoop. You know, but what content do you have? Or what information do you have to back that up? You know, because I'm also close to some seniors in the industry who will even till this age will say, "Hey, you manage information. You know, you don't just go out with information. You know, you don't go out with information because you want so many clicks, so many followers, you know, so many likes, so many artists. You know, you manage information, but you find that sometimes some of those guys who are doing that, they're under pressure. You know, because the publications or the broadcast media houses that they're working for, they have to do that. You know, so this is where you must watch this space. SAFSHA is coming up with a mentoring program, which will be headed by some seniors in the industry. It's part of it is to help. I was talking to a colleague, and you know, she was saying to me about a story or an interview that had been done. You know, and we could see where these young journalists could have done things differently, but because, you know, that guidance is not there in the background. Because if there was that guidance, things could have been done differently. So I think these are some of the things that we need to do, because in other sectors, in other bits, in the journalism space, in general news, in political news, you find that they do have some of these things which we're talking about. But for now, there's no sports journalists association. It's just us as a football journalists association. So I can only talk about what us in the footballing space as journalists we're trying to do, you know. But for instance, growing up in the province, I grew up guided by the likes of Zola Dunywa, you know, guided by the likes of Ace Kika, Lovio Jacobs, you know, people like Hugo Adams, you know, from the lower structures on how to cover the game. And some of the people tweeted out, they are no more. Someone like Mashake, he used to be a Vodacom Second Division National Coordinator, running a Blackburn back then, you know. So there you would get to understand how football administration at LFA level, regional level was working. So when I talk about all those things now, it's not experience, it's not something Andy can draw on develop. These are things I was told about more than 20 years ago. Some of them, when appeals, you understand? Yeah. So, you know, so if we can have, and we've got some of our colleagues in the provinces who are going through these things that I'm sharing, you know. So we need to have more of them now, trying to impart that knowledge to those ones who are coming up. Because for instance, you know, in a press conference setup, you know that there are questions that you're not supposed to ask in a PSL press conference, but you must ask them in a SAFA press conference. Or you must not even ask in a SAFA press conference, but ask in a press conference, because you are informed by what? You know the NSL handbook, like palm of your hand. You know the SAFA statutes as well. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I feel that as a journalist, if I want to really understand how football works in the country, if I've got the NSL handbook and I've got the SAFA statutes, I'm halfway to knowing my story. The next thing that I can just ask is questions to the people in the two structures about those things.
I mean, this it's quite fascinating to listen and to watch the press conferences and the questions that comes through, and especially with this difficult time that we were faced with in terms of football coming back, and and this is the area where Veli, I said there's so much opportunity at the amateur level to build yourself up. And I mean, we're talking about aspiring young and upcoming journalists, and even sports management students who want to be in the sport administration. That's where you start. You start from the bottom. And your story, I mean, it was quite easy to just contact you and say, let's have this conversation, because one understands that you understand amateur football. You understand it to the core. And you've seen how the structures have evolved to where they are today. And this is where that lack of guidance is so much needed, because you have to control sort of the quality and the content that goes out. Because in this day and age, the social media, there's too much pressure in terms of the deadline, and it will be out on social media. There'll be many people that will see it, they will retweet, they will like it, and some will comment. I mean, we've seen stories that make those headlines, but they lack that substance. They lack, I mean, they are, we've seen how Kickoff has also evolved, how a couple of media houses have evolved, and they've been challenged with the current situation. So at what point do you, at what point do you, as I mean, yourself, you probably have guided many young and upcoming people. At what point do you sort of provide that advice and seek to it that this person is kind of following into the footsteps and not being carried away by the social media space?
Yeah. Maybe I think it's a good thing that social media, especially Facebook and Twitter, started to be this prominent at a time when I was already established in the industry, and already I was now at this level of where I'm covering a sport. Because maybe if this whole thing had started when I was younger, I don't know how I would have reacted to this. So I think it was a good thing that it started at a time when I was wiser about how to do some of these things. And I think these are some of the things which we need to encourage to the young ones, to say Facebook, Twitter, Instagram will not make you, but your work will make you. And the work, it's hard work, and your hard work is, growing up and as a young journalist. Also, I think I fell into this trap back then. We've always believed that if you really want to be felt, come up with controversial stories. Come up with controversial stories. But as time goes on, you realize that, no, it's not really. A good story is not just a controversial story. Now we know that it's a well-researched story, a balanced story, but also as much as, because when I was in the Eastern Cape, for instance, my focus was more developmental. Also because of the state of how things were in the area where I was in the province, So, and also the station that I was working for at the time, True FM, back then it was CKI. Yeah. So, because this is also one of the things. If you are covering football, and you're working for SABC, you don't cover football or sport based on how Pelesile cover, But this is the company, this is the editorial policy, and this is the vision of the company in how this should be, So that's how you should be covering. So the difficult part that we have now is that, as much as that, okay, I'm very close to both BBK and Otimulobe, but what you are going to find on the Sunday Times and on the City Press, and how they are going to cover it, and there are different approaches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't see them rushing to the social media space with the content that they have. Have you?
No, not with those guys.
Yeah. And also not because they are the dinosaurs that they are, because but also the type of publications that they work for. I'm talking about them because they are in that Sunday space. But some who work for footballing websites, maybe that is not their approach. Maybe they must start now, because there's this social media space and there's online. They must start there, to tweet breaking news there, So I think the industry is evolving. Online is here. Yeah, online is here. I think it's changing a lot of things on how we've been doing things previously, compared to now. So I think we are facing serious challenges of how we must also evolve in how we cover sport, especially football. But it doesn't mean that we must do away with the basics.
Yeah.
There are always basics of the industry, and look, sometimes you feel that these days what is lacking is just those basics.
Yeah. Because the content in there's a lot of activities happening. There's quite a lot to cover.
But also, you see, we must cover sport entirely. Sport is not just what's happening here. And this is where I always encourage, if you are new and young in the industry, start there. Start there in the lower structures, come up. And I remember there's this one day, I was sharing this with a colleague last week. There's this one day I chased away a young boy who was an intern in one of the now defunct newspapers, national newspaper.
Yeah.
He was an intern, and he came with his senior, one of his colleagues who was covering Bafana, and I was like, no, young man, what are you looking for here? The under-17 is in camp. They are preparing to go to the AFCON. You mustn't be here.
Yeah.
What are you going to ask?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they go there to the under-17s. You know, you'll get a better story and you'll grow with those boys. Where are some of those boys today?
Sure.
You know, they're playing in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those boys.
Yeah.
And if that boy had taken that advice, or if he took that advice, I'm sure some of those boys now are even giving him stories. He must be getting all those scoops because he's got a relationship that was started more than 5 years ago,
Yeah.
covering them at under 17 level.
Yeah.
So that is the mentality that we must have.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Velile, absolutely. And like I said, you're gonna have to come back because you got a lot of stories to tell that needs to be known, and also to celebrate, you know, the kind of work that you've set up for us and for many people. I mean, I looked at this space and I said, this is where you were at. I said, let me start here. With my sport administration experience. Velile, let's look at the ABC. We look at the ABC, the SASOL, and of course the National Women's League. I know we've got about 15 minutes to wrap up.
Okay.
Where are we in that space? I mean, if I look at the ABC nationally and the SA, let me focus on the SABC. We've got teams in the ABC. You will find that there are clubs in those clubs that were promoted from the SAB, and eventually they're coming from the LFA. But when it comes to the purchasing of the status, you'll find that there are teams. Do you think that this is going to help the cause of development? I mean, we'll take it even further to the life skills. I haven't seen any life skills being provided at this level. And people always look at the professional leg and say, but so-and-so is now retired. You know, they can't even be addressing media. They have nothing to do after retirement. They haven't got a job. They haven't got money. Now I'm saying this all starts at these levels. It starts at an LFA, it started the ABC, it started the SAB, where life skills should be given to these young men and these young girls and boys, so as to prepare them if they land a professional contract. And this seems not to be happening at this level. Even with the ABC is getting a lot of money, but there are no life skills for these boys. In fact, what they do is they rather leave the school, and they hope to be a professional player one day.
Very interesting. But I think this also talks to the professionalization of the game, and I think FIFA came up with a model for me which I consider it to be universal, even though how you implement it around the world will not be the same to how you implement. You know, you cannot be implementing what I'm talking about in Europe, and you take it and you put it in Africa, you expect it to be implemented the same way. And I'm talking about club licensing. Club licensing is not only tailor-made for professional football, but it can be used and also modified for different structures of the game. You know, the club licensing that is applicable to teams in the NSL is different to the one that you can apply, for instance, in the second division, in the LFAs, or even at lower levels than there. So I feel that, because also if you go to the SAFA statutes, you will find that they've got something on club licensing. But is that being applied in the SAFA leagues, especially the ABC and also in the regional league? We used to call it SAB Regional League, but now SAB is no longer there as the sponsor. So I feel that we have tools. For instance, I think that even at NSL level, we are not implementing club licensing in a way that we're supposed to be implementing it. You know, I'm saying this thing fully understanding that part of this comes with costs as well, because you must have some of these things for you to be able to conform, you know, to the standards that are asked by the club licensing. So that's why it becomes important that you cannot take club licensing as it comes from FIFA and come and apply it in Africa. You must make sure that at least, because, for instance, part of what it talks about, it also about owning stadia. Now, you know, in this country, you know, government owns stadia. You know, there is no club that owns a stadium in this country. And this goes for a number of footballing clubs on this continent, you know. But I feel that there are those critical things. For me, you talk about life skills, for instance. There are some of those things. Yazi nawe Phils, i-club owner into angathi ifuna ukukhuphisa imali you know, abayifuna angathi ukukhuphisa imali.
Yeah.
But if a club can partner with a center or indawo nje around kuyo engingqini, you know, that club could be saving on a lot of money, but also be getting this help. And I think for me, this is where again it goes back on how are we utilizing this expertise that come with these sport management graduates, and also because, you know, the good thing in the SAFA regions, or maybe let me say in the SAFA provinces, there is no province, there's no province in this country which is not surrounded by tertiary institutions. And those people have got the funding, they've got the expertise, they've got the infrastructure to help all those regions to prosper. But are we utilizing them? Because if for instance, we go to the turning point of women's football in the country, we are raving now about South Africa exporting women's footballers to European clubs and top clubs.
Yeah.
What was the turning point? The turning point was to see a university sport taking a strong interest in women's football and offering bursaries to these young girls to come and study in their institutions and play there, you know? And some of them today, they are analysts.
Sure.
Some of them have retired from the game, you know? Some of them have got good jobs, you know? And some of them, they're in different sectors, and some are still playing. But this was the big role which was played by university sport in the country. So there's the secret of the FA. I really wouldn't struggle. How can I struggle in the Western Cape with UCT there, with the Stellenbosch there, with UWC there? Huh? How can I struggle?
It is just a walk to the institution and sign that agreement. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I guess it comes down to, you know, to where we said, you know, in the leadership role, do you understand your responsibilities in terms of partnerships, in terms of stakeholders, and how do you nurture those to ensure that the FA becomes viable, it becomes sound, you know, the image, when people look at it, they see it in that fashion. And when you walk out in that 4-year term and your work is done, you know that you're walking out as a free man who has done what he was supposed to do. You've delivered.
For instance, this talks to Vision 2022. And I always say to my colleagues, do you know Vision 2022 document? Have you seen it? And some of them said, no. Vision 2022, and I used to say this, and I'll say this to Dennis Mumble.
Yeah.
You know, Vision 2022, I even know how long is that document and what is supposed to happen and when is it supposed to happen. Now, I remember asking him after one press conference, and I said, this document says, now you must be here. Why are you behind? In terms of, it's a very good document, beautiful document.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But it's just good on paper.
Yeah.
Without implement, no, you see, for instance, Vision 2022 talks about from PSL level to SAB regional league level, you know, each team having a women's team. You know, now Vision 2022 started when after we failed to qualify for AFCON.
AFCON,
yeah. Yes. There was a technical seminar, technical symposium which was organized, and the president then was Christina Matandani. Peter was the coach, and after we failed to qualify, but when the symposium took place, the coach was. I think the coach was Gordon Hassan.
Yeah.
You know, so if you go to that, even though some of the things I don't agree with them, and the technical things that are there in that Vision 22 that we are offered to playing in, okay, it's fine. But some of the things, if they're implemented perfectly there, you know, would be far, because it's a very good document on paper. It tells you about some of, you know, when I was in the Eastern Cape, there was always this, you know, each and every time a new minister, a new MEC is coming in, there will be an Indaba. No, let's have this Indaba, you know, let's have this Indaba. That's why, you know, when Minister Mbaks came in late 2010, in 2011, and he had that national sports plan that they had back then, which also has resulted now in this eminent persons group, the EPG report that the minister Mnyandu was even talking about now.
Yeah.
That is as a result of that national sports plan, you know. So because you are going to have all these indabas. So this goes back to this close to 80 pages long, if not just Vision 2022, you know. If you go to some of the things, for instance, when it comes to technical, who is supposed to coach in the PSL? Can you have someone who has a C license coaching in the PSL?
Velile, we even had people or coaches coaching at this level, but they haven't got the qualification to coach. At the SAFA league level, and you have a person who's coaching.
So how do you have someone who's unskilled, and you say that person is going to produce skilled people? It's not skilled himself or herself.
No.
You know. No. And you say that person must produce skilled people. So, and there are better people in the system, you know. There are better people in the system who can help you to produce, you know. So I just feel that, man, you know, the sporting talk or the footballing talk, when you fully understand it, it's very good and it's nice, but there must be results.
There must be results, and there must be
results we can't just talk all the time that we must do this, and we've got these documents, and after another 4 or 5 year period, we just have both perats, we've got indabas, and yet we've not even moved on the past resolutions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So for me, I think this is where we have these challenges.
There's still quite a lot of work to be done. But you said we need the right people.
2 hours, 2 hours, no, why?
No, let's wrap up, really. Let's wrap up. Let's just close it on a positive note. I mean, I think you're probably aware that we, in partnership with this MySafa software, that deals with the registration, it deals with, looking at the professional side of administration, get things out and get things rolling in football. I think there's probably about 400,000 athletes or players that have been registered, if I've got the figures correctly with me. And if you look at it, there's another angle to it, where if you are coming to a local club and you have been active since you were 12 years old, and once you register on that system, you are able to be tracked as you sign your professional contracts, that your club will have to benefit through this compensation. I think they call it training compensation. What is your take on it, and how do you see this assisting local football who have been for many years producing players? How would that in turn assist them to be sustainable? In a South African context, is that you've got the big guns who just take from the amateur football clubs, and there's nothing in return, basically, for those clubs to produce more talent.
Now we're talking about the training fee, and you see, it's a good thing because now we're talking about something that is there.
Yeah.
From the FIFA statutes, filtering down to the member associations of FIFA, which are your SAFA and your ZIFA and your FAS and all of them on the continent. And the problem, Pels, is on implementation. And here, in terms of implementing this, in our case, I think I would blame the FA, but also I would blame the clubs, the professional clubs, in not trying to assist, because I remember there's a friend of mine who forwarded me something. I'm not going to mention the name. He forwarded me something earlier this year, talking about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But now this was a PSL team which was stalling to pay a club in the SAFA structures a training fee, but then now, who is supposed to be implementing this? And there's a lot of money involved here, because these players go on to even play in Europe. That's why, let's take the case of this young man who signed for more than 60 million euros, Victor Osimhen.
Yeah.
Victor Osimhen, in 2015, when we played against him, and we beat them in the semi-finals of the AFCON Under-17 in Mali. I'm not sure we were playing in Mali, Niger, but yeah, I think in Mali. Victor Osimhen went on to play in the Under-17 World Cup. But when we played in the Under-17 World Cup, we were there. Molefi Ntseka was coaching the team. He took the likes of Kamamela Kotisang, the Riff Rosler that we see today, the Malebo Modise, you can mention all these boys, Mpoto, the goalkeeper. He was playing for an academy. He was playing for an academy back in Nigeria.
Yeah.
He went on to be a top goal scorer, right? At the World Cup under 17, FIFA World Cup under 17 in Chile. And Chukwueze, who is now playing for Velile. Chukwueze, he also played in the AFCON for the senior team, the Super Eagles last year. I think he scored 2 goals against Barcelona, not the season, the other season.
Yeah.
Chukwueze was his teammate. They were both coming from different academies, you know. But surely his academy back in Nigeria, even though he's been to clubs in Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga, Belgian clubs, and he was also wanted by Arsenal, Victor Osimhen. From the 60 million euro plus that Napoli is paying FC Lille, the academy is benefiting in Nigeria. Training fee.
Yeah.
And who has to make sure that club benefits from that, and who has to assist them? It's the Nigerian Football Federation, NFF.
Yeah.
You know? But look, that's where I'm really hoping that this might suffer, you know, which almost all the clubs now in the system they are using, that it's going to benefit, because I hear that it's also linked to FIFA as well. So if I register my son who turned 8 this past week, and then he's into an academy, and he has a card to say he's a member of the Panorama Sports team, then it means that from that day he's registered in the system, and things will not change, you know, because I would, you know, I've heard so many stories. I mean, even big clubs here, you know, I've heard so many stories where they take a player from an amateur club, and you just get given cones and the balls. I mean, what are you going to use? What are you going to do? You know?
Yeah.
You know, there's no amount of money that is being given to this amateur club, you know, just to help build the club, you know, so that you can produce another player and give it to the same club, for that matter, you know?
Yeah.
Because
I think that's where, I think that's where there's a bit of I always say, if I look at some of the professional clubs that are playing, and let's look at Monib. Monib comes from Mitchell's Play. And Monib, he was playing there, and at some point then he moved up the ranks. Now, and I was making this example. I said, why can't you have a Monib coming and giving a motivation to this LFA here? Why can't the LFA get a Monib to come and have that interaction? And this deals also with the crowd following that specific club. Why you don't have formal relationships between amateur and professional clubs? If Cape Town City is playing, why are not all the LFAs supporting Cape Town City?
But also this goes for people who are also advising players, you know.
Hey.
You know, I don't want to call them, you know. It was, you know, sometimes, you know, this thing should not just be based on a transaction, that a contract has expired, then there are negotiations, then and then, okay, we want a new club, then no, you know. Those people, we need a different breed of those people, you know. People who understand what their job is around the player. Because for me, we really can't be having this conversation that someone who's a product of these structures, now there's this barricade between him and the structures. You are a product of the structures. You came through these structures, you know. And this is why I'm encouraged to see some of the guys. I know some of them are trying, you know. I'm encouraged to see some of them going back to the structures and try and help and uplift. I don't want to lie. I'm not really a big fan of this once-off tournaments.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of someone who's playing a role to help. You know, but sometimes some of these things also are based on advice as well. You know, the guys need to be advised. They have an idea, and sometimes they feel that no, just to run a tournament, and then I go back to my club in Joburg or back to my club in Cape Town. That's it. You know,
Yeah.
and we must look at a sustainable project. You know, not necessarily even to adopt a team, but work hand in hand. Especially if for Europe,
Hey.
Europe, you know, no. Do something.
Yeah.
But where I feel that people who are managing players, they need to, they seriously look to do better. Maybe it's gonna be better now that football agents will have to go back to the classroom again and get certified by FIFA.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And maybe we are going to go back to a system where we end up with the people who know what they are doing. You know? And what they are doing is not just a transfer window job, you know, but it's a 24/7 thing. To help the player.
Absolutely,
you know?
Really. Absolutely.
Yes, even though some of them I know that they try to help players, but also players are stubborn.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you always hear from agents is that you can't trust a football player.
Oh, I've heard that one so many times, and that's quite a lot, really, and we really appreciate your time. I think we've gone into extra time.
Even more than extra time. No. A footballing match is 120 minutes, and there are penalties.
Yeah.
Unless when I run a FIFA and I see
Thank you so much, man. We really appreciate the time that you made to spend with us, and hopefully we can be able to catch up with you in the future when your calendar is cleared, and just to talk about your journey in the coverage of sport. Because some people think that you only know about football, but they don't know that you know when it comes to sport, you quite diverse, and you've covered quite a lot of areas, especially with the national and local sport.
Look, when you come from the Eastern Cape, it's a no-brainer. You know, you can't just be talking football. But it's just that I come from the old Transkei side of the province. I grew up in Butterworth. And that side, kakhulu sidlala ibhola. So covering amanqindi, cricket and rugby, it's when I moved, and I've spent most of my life on the Ciskei side of the province.
That's where we know you, most of us.
Yes. Because Umzali went to work that side, and then that's also where I started my formal education as well. So I grew up Kolatala, training amanqindi phaya eBishop Basin. Military base phaya eSikhobeni. Then training inqindi pha. And then also playing cricket, Stratton Namajita. But I had this strong football influence because as much as Sasadla was sports even Netash Rapi, but I would always bring it for and I think also growing up as Zolicha as well, with clubs there like Green Eagles Zone 8, you know, because Nanfunda one guy is Zone 8, even though Nansuga Zone 9, you know. So there was that football influence, and then you have people like Onkosnathi Mqobongo,
Yeah.
who are also
Hey.
influencing a lot
Yes.
on football.
Yeah.
And one of the few, if not the only, professional football player who have been produced at Qonce. Onkosnathi Mqobongo. But watch out.
Yes.
There's a young boy. He plays for Bidvest Wits.
Yeah.
He was in this MDC team. He comes from a Qobo. I spoke to him. He scored goals in the under-20 team ka Helman Mkhelele Amajita.
Yes.
What one Usnenjongo Mkiva. And what's up Qobo? So every watch time I spoke to him, what I thought man, so a professional player. So
no, that's good news. That's good news. That's good news. That's Velile Mnyandu, quite a very experienced gentleman, and we're just pleased that he made some time to chat with us, and hopefully we will catch up with him soon to tell us more about his journey. This man got many stories to tell, so those stories have to be known.